Guys, it's Kelly. Mari and I are back with another challenge. This week we are challenging ourselves to use frames. Now, my first thought with this challenge was to go into my stash and get several of those simple story chipboard frames that I have that I haven't used yet. But this new collection from Maggie Holmes was staring at me, and it was staring me down, and it was like double dog daring me to use it, and I just could not resist the challenge. I had to use it, and I lost that battle of my stash versus the new pretty things. So I'm taking this paper, it's one of her cut apart sheets, and I am cutting the frames out of the paper. I chose this because the frames were the same size, the same color once I gutted the inside, and I knew that that would work for 2 of my 3 photos. I had briefly looked in the embellishment die cuts and saw that they had a few frames, but they weren't the same size, and I was going to see if I could incorporate them on the page as well, but I wanted at least 2 of them to be the same size for these photos. Since the photos aren't that great, there's a lot going on in the background, but I still really wanted to tell the story. So these photos are, I think they're 4 years old now, and they are of my kids. We are at a theme park, and there's like a game, I guess, even though it's free. So I don't know what you want to call that, because usually you have to pay to play games. But anyway, the kids, they have this thing where there's water balloons, and they have like a catapult, and I think maybe 6 people can play at one time, but the park was kind of empty, so my 2 were playing it by themselves. So they stationed themselves across from each other and had a blast trying to soak the other, and it was just fun. My husband and I chose to stay on the sidelines because I will tell you, if you do play this game and you get hit just even by one water balloon, they have it rigged so that you walk out of there dripping wet. So we chose to stay dry. So with these photos, because my kids are on opposite sides, just so that when they, launch the water balloon, they get each other soaked, I decided to make a grid layout. And I'm going to have my son, since he is really looking up, I'm going to have him on the bottom left-hand side and my daughter on the upper right-hand side. I felt like that would, ideally it would be better if my daughter was looking down, but this provides a nice balance. They're both looking into the center of the page, and it to me, it's a little bit more pleasing with the placement. So one of the things that these photo frames helps to do is to contain some of the busyness of the 2 photos. The one of just my kids in front of the sign, that's pretty mundane. You can see what the focus is. The 2 of the kids playing, it's a little bit more difficult, because if you focus in or if you zoom in too much, you kind of lose the effect of what's going on, and if you stay far away, you still get a lot of extraneous things. So this was how I chose to battle that. So this is an idea for you if you have some photos that you want to document, to tell a story, that you can do this to just try to contain some of the busyness. So with doing the grid, the photos are, because the frames are of a Polaroid frame type, they're a little bit different. I didn't want to, I could have stayed with more of a rectangular grid, but I decided I really liked to change it up, and I'm going to do square pieces of paper. So I believe that they are 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I'm just cutting strips of the pattern paper that size, and then I'm just going to layer some different patterns and embellishments and the chipboard pieces and just offset them so that they're not complete squares or not complete rectangles, just to make it a little bit more fun. So one of the things that I noticed while I was looking through this embellishment pack is that some of these die cuts are huge. And I thought that maybe if I could at least get 1 or 2 of them on a page, that it would be success, because I don't know about you, but these huge die cuts are going to definitely be more difficult for me to use. And you know, it's hard for me to like kill a die cut pack or to kill an embellishment pack anyway, and it's going to be even more difficult since some of these pieces are 3, 4, and maybe even 5 inches tall. So I challenged myself. I pulled off that little ticket lady. I thought she was adorable and that it would work well since this is kind of like a game at a theme park. And I thought if I were going to get this onto a page, this would be the time and the place. So I'm putting it aside because I want to figure out if I'm going to have my title up in that corner, if I'm going to mount it on another piece of paper. You know, I'm not quite sure at this point how I'm going to address that. So this is one of the specialty papers that is in the collection. It's a bunch of different tickets. I love this piece of paper. It doesn't matter to me that it says arcade or, you know, like more game themed things. I'm going to use several of these on the page, and I know that I will pull it out with, you know, this collection each time I use it, because these are great little pieces to layer and embellish small parts, bring in different, you know, pops of color. So I'm definitely going to get a lot of use out of that paper. That was one of the things that excited me about the specialty paper, is the size of the pieces are much more manageable than some of the larger die cuts. So what I'm trying to do is balance out the colors. I have put that black piece of paper at the bottom right hand corner. It's still a little dark, and as I'm looking at it, I feel like it may be just a tad bit too dark. So I may go back and lift up what I've got and just put another piece of paper, you know, maybe pink underneath it, just to brighten it up a little bit more. But I wanted some of the hearts to show because I just loved, we had fun this day, and I like, you know, hearts always work well. So I definitely want the hearts to show. I'm going to wait though and see, you know, maybe sit on it a few more days and decide if I want to do it or not. Sometimes these decisions I decide aren't worth it, or that sometimes I'm like, you know, I'll just be happier if I go ahead and do it. So I am going to pull out that hot air balloon piece of paper. I purchased that piece of paper for, I think, the other side. I'm not sure what the other side is, but I thought that by cutting that pattern paper pretty tight, you just get the color and not the fact that it's a hot air balloon. So on the sticker sheet, they have these balloons, and I thought, well, they had a water balloon fight. This is perfect. So I'm going to use my EK Success powder tool and just put some on the bottom of the stickers so that I can move it around the page if I decide to, but it is going to stay in that cluster. So to add a little bit of texture for this, I am going to use my distress tool and distress the edges of the papers. I love the way that this looks. You do not need to have a distress tool though. If you don't have one, you can just open up your scissors and use your scissors to rough up the edges. I just happen to have it. It came with something years ago. It's very old. You know, so it's just one of those things that I still use because I have it, but I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy one if you didn't have one. So since this is a grid, I do want to get my pieces of paper where they are equally spaced apart from the top and the bottom and in the middle of the page. You know, I've already decided that my grid is going to go off of the papers, either, you know, up top, down the bottom, to the right, or to the left. I just want something to have a start, and then I can just, you know, place everything else around it. This grid actually would work well, I think, without it being completely set up as a grid, but I thought that since it was easy enough and it wasn't going to stress me out too much to try to get it exactly, that it was easy enough to do. So I am going to go ahead and stick things down. This layout, it was amazing that I went as far as I did on it without putting things down. Usually it drives me crazy if I'm, you know, if I have things moving around on me. But for this page, I think just because I wasn't quite sure how the grids were going to work or how the clusters, I was fine with it. So I am going to cut that bingo card. I liked the little pop of glitter, gold glitter on the edges. And so I'm just going to cut the outside edges, and I'm going to use it in 2 different places on the page. I'm actually going to move that piece up to the top cluster. I think that I end up doing that off camera. I was just looking at it and I felt like the balance was a little bit off. So in the close-ups, you will see that that gold piece that's on the left-hand side will go up to the top behind the ticket lady once I get her on. So I am going to use my craft foam, and I'm going to pop up some of the embellishments. I'm not going to pop up the photos because I felt like if I did it at that point with all of the embellishments popped up as well, that my page would be two-dimensional. And I do like it. I'd love dimension, but I don't want it to be so thick as to where it's going to mess up my page protector. So I found that just with popping up the embellishments, that gave me the dimension that I wanted. So I have decided that I am going to use this ticket lady, and I'm going to type my journaling on the computer just so that it fits in that little section to the right hand side of the ticket lady. So you will see that in the close-ups. And the other thing that I ended up doing after I did that is I added some, like a title to the page. I felt like this was so busy, a big title just was not going to work. And I ended up coming up with Ready, Aim, Fire, and I'm going to use October Afternoon letter stickers and place it at the bottom of the Polaroids. So again, I did that off camera. It was after I was looking at it and trying to figure out what else I could do without overwhelming the page. So again, sorry about that. You will see that though in the close-ups. So I do want to go ahead and pop up the ticket lady as well. I love, love, love the dimension that it gives. It casts a pretty shadow underneath. Some of these things, you know, you can see it in the photos, but seeing it in person is just so much better because it is so cool. So if you haven't done that, I would definitely recommend popping up some of your embellishments just for that little extra detail. Sometimes others may not appreciate it, but you certainly do. I just picked up the page just so I could admire it. It was so cool. So I'm just trying to work in any of the pieces that I have cut in half, just because I know that if I can get them on the page, I'm more likely to use them. But I'm just going to stick it back with the die cut because I know that I will at some point use the little pieces definitely. So I have pulled out this black and white piece of paper. This is an Amy Tangerine paper. I think I got this pack at Tuesday Morning, and it's like a collection pack of 20 or 25. I bought this just for the black and white piece of paper, the black and white side. And I'm going to end up trimming down the cardstock and mounting it on the black and white to help bring in the black of that lower right hand photo mat. So that's pretty much it for me today. I have linked Mari's channel down below in the detail section. So we would love for you to join us. Mari started a Facebook group called Scrap O'Clock, and we post our challenges there and love for you to participate and play along with us. So that's it for me. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.